Excited that you are all here. It's always fun to see some familiar names as well as some new names coming up. So again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our February Centering Servingness webinar series. We're super excited to have you all here with us today so you can learn from some amazing folks here at the University of Arizona. Again, my name is Carla Silva, and I serve as the director for HSI initiatives here at the U of A. I'm excited because today our community includes, again, folks from the College of Engineering here at the University of Arizona. So again, we are excited that you're here with us. And as you're trickling in, please let us know where you're joining us from. We love seeing where folks are coming in. So as always, we want to make sure that we are recognizing and paying honor to the original inhabitants of the land on which the U of A resides. So this region includes the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the Pascua Yaqui tribe. We offer our gratitude in being able to share knowledge on these indigenous lands. We also invite you in the chat if you're joining us from a different place that is not maybe Tucson, Arizona. We invite you to also in the chat share what homelands your university or where you reside are on as well. So, informed by Dr. Dina Garcia's extensive body of work on the concept of servingness, this webinar series features faculty and staff who engage in scholarship and servingness efforts that honor the cultures and lived experience of our student, staff, and faculty communities. We have three goals within our Centering Servingness webinar series. One, by spotlighting current scholarship, we offer examples of the rich ways in which servingness is enacted by our faculty and staff across our institution. We also invite others, both on our campus and nationally, to learn about and engage in these efforts. And lastly, to build knowledge. So again, each month we address one question, which our current facilitators have already, been asked and will share at the very end. But what next steps are really needed to build institutional capacity around HSI servingness? So, a little bit about the University of Arizona for folks who may not be as familiar. We received our HSI designation back in 2018. We were the first four-year public university within the state of Arizona to be recognized as an HSI. In 2019, the U of A was among 9 higher education institutions to receive the inaugural Seal of Excelencia, awarded by Excelencia in Education, and we were recertified in 2022. So, really, what this seal is showing us what the U of A is doing and is aimed at recognizing us as well as other institutions that demonstrate intentional impact and success in 3 core areas. And what those areas are data, practice, and leadership. So the folks who you're going to hear from today are actually, in this webinar series are perfect examples of ways in which we are seeing student success within those 3 areas. So again, data, practice, and leadership, and who are constantly engaging in these intentional servingness efforts day in and day out, and who are striving to create even more culturally sustaining experiences for students on our campus. So again, we're excited to have these folks here with us today. I'm going to pass it along to them so that they can, use this time to share more about their program. But it is my honor to introduce to you the 2 staff members that are embodying servingness every day here at the University of Arizona. So today, our presenters are Dr. Noel Hennessey, who serves as the Director for Engineering, Access, Greater Equity and Diversity out of the College of Engineering, and Ailyn Gomez-Ray, who serves as the Engineering Pathway Specialist. So they'll have about 40-ish minutes to share with you their program, as well as just, some things they've learned and how this is tied to servingness. We will then open it up to questions. So if you have questions that are popping up while they're presenting, we encourage you to use the Q&A feature within the Zoom webinar, and we'll make sure when we get to the Q&A section that we're looking at that. But also feel free to throw it in the chat if that's a little bit easier for you today. So please help me in welcoming our guests today. So I'll pass it on to you, Dr. Hennessey.
Thank you so much, Carla. Um, everybody, I'm assuming can hear me okay? Okay. I can't see anyone, so we're good. Thank you, Carla. My name is Noel Hennessey. Let me pull up my screen here. I'm joined by Ailyn Gomez-Ray, and we are presenting on one of the newest programs in our portfolio of programs in the College of Engineering, Engaged program, Empower. Empower stands for Engineering Mentors, Promoting Outreach, Wellness, Education, and Respect. And it was actually funded by a Faculty Seed Award from the HSI Initiatives Office here at the University of Arizona. And so this is this work was made possible in large part because of a faculty seed grant and the members of the faculty who partnered with us, who are, I don't have them named on this slide, Heather Hager and Kavan Hazeli. And so I'm Noel Hennessey. I'm the director of Engaged, and I'm joined by Ailyn Gomez-Ray, and she can tell you a little bit more about what she does with Engaged.
Hi, so a little more about what I do is that I coordinate events for programs, and I also offer direct student support for our students, and I plan outreach events for Empower, and including so specifically focus on K through 12 STEM outreach.
So just kind of would like to walk you through, I always love an outline, walk you through a little bit of what we'll talk about today. We're going to introduce you to our guiding framework, which is using validating interactions and foregrounding societal impacts of engineering to create this lens of culturally sustaining outreach and recruitment. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how we design the program and what we do, and specifically some of the activities and some of the ways that we have centered liberatory outcomes as part of our program design. We dive a little bit more into critical leadership, and you'll see more about what I mean by that, but it's really kind of getting into some of the liberatory outcomes for our undergraduate students who participate in the program, and how our critical leadership training elevates both their engineering identity and their critical consciousness. And then give you a little bit of a preview of some of our next steps where we see this program going. As I mentioned, this is the first, I don't know that I explicitly said this, but this is the first year that we've done this program. This was funded by the HSI Faculty Seed Grant in the last program cycle, which those of you who are at the U of A, that was a program, that was a funding cycle that we applied for in the spring. And so if just keep a lookout for those internal grants, those can be really helpful in really seeding and piloting some cool ideas. And so before we get into this, I want to tell you about bagels. I think people who know me are probably laughing, like, of course she's going to talk about bagels. I do like to bake, I'm a baker, but I want to talk to you about bagels because of a way that it is really an important part of who I am as a Jewish woman and the work that I do in serving this. The bagel has kind of a funny, weird history. The bagel that we know today was invented in the Middle Ages in Poland. Not middle, it's like 16th, 17th century Poland, when it was illegal for Jews to buy, sell, or touch bread or any baked goods. And so the Jewish community created this bagel. You boil it before you bake it. And so they were like, catch 22, it's not bread. And to me, that is really, really meaningful because of the place that we find ourselves in today when we're feeling unfairly targeted or suppressed and pretty blatantly discriminated against in I'm not speaking as a Jewish woman, but just in the space that we occupy as educators. But as a Jewish woman, I really admire the ability to look at a problem and say, I'm smarter than these people. I'm going to figure out a way around it. And so I just want to like kind of put that out there. The bagels don't really have that much to do with what we're going to talk about today, but I think this is on a lot of folks' mind about how we move forward in this environment and in this time period in history as educators. And so remember the bagels as we walk through this presentation. Um, Ailyn, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about our framework?
Yes, thank you, Noel. Uh, I forgot to say at the beginning that I'm a little sick, so that's why I'm keeping my camera off. But yes, so to start off with our guiding framework, so basically here is some information regarding the how BIPOC individuals are represented in engineering. So specifically in like the nation, engineering professionals, 18.6% in 2021 were BIPOC. And at the U of A specifically, 28.1% of the engineering students identify as BIPOC. So this is just to show like how like the low percentage of the BIPOC representation in engineering. And then in terms of recruitment, it's also found that BIPOC and Latinx students are under recruited in schools. And students also do not see themselves represented in engineering faculty, um, and also experience microaggressions and racialized experiences that can impact like the way they feel on campus and their sense of belonging in engineering and engineering field as a whole.
Um, Thank you, Ailyn. And just so everybody's clear, Ailyn will sometimes turn her camera off if she's got a coughing attack, but she's aware that her camera is on. Thank you. um, um, so yeah, definitely sets up the need that we really kind of saw an opportunity to reframe and kind of reimagine what recruitment could look like in schools that had high Latinx populations. And so our framework is really guided by this concept of validation, which is, I didn't include a citation, I just realized on the validating relationships, but Rendon talked about validating relationships being just affirming relationships with institutional agents and other actors and participants in an institution of higher education. And those validating interactions being, authentic connection to similar peers, valuing home cultural knowledge, and so seeing the cultural knowledge and cultural wealth that they enter as an asset and not just incidental in their education. Getting mentorship that sustains their cultural identity. So having mentors and having people to connect with, both inside and outside of the institution, who affirm both their cultural identity and their educational aspirations. And this concept of pluriversal cultural wealth, which I think is really cool and interesting. This affirmation of academic strengths and professional westernized strengths existing in tandem with and enhanced by cultural identities. And so really all of these concepts are really sort of swirling together to help us create this environment in which students, cultural identities, the places from which they came, the experiences that they came to college with are have bring immense value and are valued and do add to our collective education as a community. And so that's the logic and the framing theoretically and from a scholarly level of empower. But truly, where so many really good ideas start are with our students. So I'm going to let Ailyn tell you Sophia's story about how, like, really what sparked this idea that we should do this thing that we're doing.
Yes, thanks, Noel. So one of our students who went to Tucson High mentioned how she's currently studying in engineering, but she mentioned how she noticed not really seeing engineering recruitment at Tucson High, and that was just really impactful for her because of how close Tucson High is to the U of A, like literally across the street. And she mentioned wanting to be like that person to go to Tucson High to be like a representative for students in engineering. And that led us to ask, like, well, first, why was she not seeing this representation in a school that's so close by? And also, what can we do about it? And how can we involve our students so that they can be these ambassadors in their own schools and places of community that are important to them?
Thank you. So this framework is probably pretty familiar to some, and maybe not as familiar to others. But in Engaged, we really look at outcomes in terms of what is normative and what is student-centered or liberatory. And so a normative outcome is what we typically hear about from an institutional level. It tends to look like what are our numbers in terms of enrollment? What is what's our rate of retention within a college or within the university? What are students' overall GPAs and their academic performance? What's the time that it takes to graduate? And I want to be clear that these are really informative. These are really informative metrics, and something that we do encourage people to look at and question and think about. But they're definitely framed from the institutional perspective. How are these students impacting the performance of the institution? Liberatory outcomes, on the other hand, have to do with the way that students, the institution impacts the students. And so when we're talking about serving this, like I said, it's not unimportant to think about those normative institutional outcomes, but it is, we really highly value what is happening with the student and how are we influencing and impacting and empowering the student. And so so we've got liberatory outcomes that this program really engages are self-efficacy, sense of belonging, STEM or engineering identity, elevated educational aspirations. And if you're familiar at all with Dr. Garcia's organizational identity matrix, you'll kind of see that institution or normative or institutional outcomes sort of fall in that upper left quadrant of Latinx producing institutions that have high organizational outcomes for Latinx students. And again, we really want to produce graduates and have students enroll and graduate from our programs. But those liberatory outcomes really seek to engage an organizational culture that also reflects Latinx strength and culture and identity. And so that's in that like upper right-hand corner, Latinx serving is where you'll see more of those liberatory outcomes. So it's kind of like some theoretical grounding. And then this crazy picture is our program model. So this is what we drew out as part of our funding proposal to propose that we get a little bit of seed funding to investigate this model. So empowered outreach is undergraduate students connecting with students in the K-12 system to help them understand more about engineering and uplift their beliefs in themselves, and hopefully get them to think about applying to and enrolling at the University of Arizona. So you see the participants are both K-12 students and undergraduate students. The liberatory outcomes are related to the aspirations of the K-12 students, the engineering identity of the undergraduate students, and the self-efficacy of both, that they're both really gaining something from the experience of interacting with one another, and either promoting or learning more about engineering education. And then we have normative outcomes on here too. And so that we would like to see more enrollment from some of these students from limited resource high schools, especially those that are local. And we'd also see more persistence from students in engineering education who are engaging as empowered leaders. So Ailyn is going to tell you a little bit about what we've done in this pilot year with our Empower students.
Yeah, so these are just some examples of what it has looked like in practice over the past, I guess, semester and a half. So the first activity that we created was a circuit light up bracelet activity, and the students basically learned like basic concepts of circuits and made a light up bracelet like in the picture with the two students showing their bracelets. And we did this activity with Big Brothers Big Sisters and with SHIP, which stands for Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, which is a club on campus. And we did this with middle schoolers for SHIP, and for Big Brothers Big Sisters it was sorry, no, it was a combination of different ages. So Big Brothers Big Sisters is a mentorship program for students from 5 to 18 years old. So they came with their big siblings, and our students helped them through explaining what a circuit is and kind of guided them through. And we always end with the message of you are an engineer, and students are always kind of like, what, I'm an engineer? Like, it's hard for them to like connect what they just did with being an engineer, which is like problem solving, but then at the end they end up like be so like I remember for Big Brothers Big Sisters, one of the students at the end told me like, "Oh, I'm an engineer," and he left like really happy after the event actually believing that. So that's just like a message that we like to incorporate in all our activities. Then for the next activity that our students created is the Big Beam Tower Challenge. So we did this one with Upward Bound Saturday Academy and then Gadsden School Districts. And our students created this presentation and this activity by themselves and led the middle school and high school students to build their own towers and see what they could like basically taught them basic beam structures and integrity of structures. And again, ending with that message of you are an engineer. And um, yeah, so and for the next activity, the something we incorporate into a lot of our activities is also an aspect of mentorship. So for example, in the same Gadsden school district visit where the students came to the U of A and kind of had like a STEM immersive day. Some of our students, as you can see in the picture on the left, were a part of a panel and they shared kind of who they are and why they went to college. And that was just really impactful for the students to hear and see themselves in older students' shoes. And then Cardin of Tucson, our students provide guidance and mentorship by helping them design inventions. Like in that picture, our students went and helped them create some sort of invention to clean up like a mythical oil spill. And they worked together. One of our students was with two middle school students, and they worked together in teams and kind of guided them through those engineering concepts of creating something. And those are just examples that we've had this past semester so far.
Yeah, it's definitely like um, it's really important. I forget this sometimes that we just started this in August. Like we got the funding in June and we really launched this in August. So like it's really it's something I have to remind myself like, oh my gosh, we've done all this in a semester. Um, we wanted to talk about, so Ailyn talked a good little bit about like how we deliver the program to the youth who we're working with and partnering with, but we're also delivering a program to our undergraduate empowered leaders. And part of that is critical leadership workshops. And so we wanted them to not only understand how to facilitate the the STEM activities and how to relate to the students and just give them good messaging around college, but to develop a higher level of critical consciousness around um, why do we have empower? why do we why do we think this is happening where we are still producing fewer BIPOC and Latinx engineers nationwide? Why are fewer being recruited? What does recruitment look like? And so I mean, it was definitely an experiment, right? Because this is all new and we're just piloting, and we invited these 8 freshmen to come learn about stuff that I learned about in grad school as an education PhD, about critical and rational frameworks around equality, and really kind of starting to understand systems. But for us, it was important. We didn't want students to just be actors or, kind of cogs in our system. We really wanted them to develop as leaders, to continue this work beyond their first year, and continue this work among their peers as well. And they get it. Like, the kids are all right, everyone. They really we've really had some really engaging discussions about just the educational systems that they've been a part of, and educational systems that they want to improve. And so we also have found that centering outreach around societal impact, or we hypothesized and have applied this hypothesis that centering outcomes, or centering recruitment and outreach around societal impact rather than math and science interest and ability would potentially change the conversation um, uh, in how students saw themselves as engineers. Students in the community saw themselves as engineers. As you heard Ailyn said, we tell them all, you're an engineer at the end of our projects, and it is sort of this kind of interesting shift in idea of what engineer is. Whereas even many of our empowered leaders, the way that they decided that they would be an engineer was because somebody told them, you're good at math, you're good at science, you should be an engineer. So like that has been sort of the shift in mindset in like, okay, is it about like being the best in these things, or is it just about your ability to grow and do these things in order to apply them to really important world problems? And so the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the National Academy of Engineering Grand Challenges for Engineering, really center societal impacts over the technical functionality of the disciplines that we teach. So that's been an important part of critical leadership training. And then finally, students get like all these certifications from our amazing Engineering Design Center, which we've heard for the last few years since the Engineering Design Center opened. Some students don't even go in there until their senior design project that they're starting to work on in their senior year. And we're really getting students in there in their first semester to get certified in 3D printing, vinyl cutting, and soldering, and just get really comfortable in that space and using that resource. And so again, this program is about more than just using students as vehicles to get to K-12 students in the community, but also to really build these students' engineering identity in practice and their opportunities in practice.
And here's a little bit more of like the outcomes that we've had so far this past semester and a half. So we've had 10 events so far, and we've reached 300, a little over 300 students total. And when I was looking at these numbers, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize it was that much. And also that's kind of how it breaks down, is the majority of the students of our events have been middle school students, and led us to ask like, how are these numbers so high in less than 1 year? And it's just kind of related to my own story of being from being first gen Latina from a border town I received a lot of support through my counselor in middle school and going to events kind of like the ones we're hosting. And but I didn't really see that in Arizona. I always had to go out of the state for those opportunities. And so it was really cool that I was able to participate in those opportunities as a student. And then now that we're able to give back in a way. And this is a picture of me and other students who came to the U of A with our counselor and math teacher from Gadsden School District. And this was a picture at the STEM visit last semester. So other students from San Luis who are at the U of A volunteered too because they also see value in this work, and just kind of leveraging connections like that is what has led to us having so many events and such high student involvement and in such a short amount of time.
Thank you. So, so now we're coming up to the end of our funding cycle from what we started with the HSI Initiative Office. So it was really always on the forefront of our mind since this was a one-year grant. Basically, when you get a one-year grant, you have to think of what's next on like day one. And so we definitely got to work in doing that, and we using Empower and our partnership with Trio Upward Bound, which Arlette, I see you, thanks for being here. With our partnership with Upward Bound, we applied with Arlette Perez from the College of Ed for one of the AZ Gate awards that was that was a funding cycle that was offered up last fall, and our program that we called Designing Change that leveraged our two programs into one was funded. And so we are in the process of just really continuing to explore and dig in and figure out what are we doing? How do we continue building relationships with partnering schools and partnering programs? And so the AZ Gate funding is $25,000 also for 1 year, and it has helped pay for some staff time as well as extend some of the Empower students into the summer and into the fall semester, and is helping us really continuing to see what it means to cultivate relationships ongoing between students and mentors in the Empower program, and how that impacts their ability to see themselves as engineers, as well as continue to kind of push what does it mean to help students see the societal impacts of engineering. And so part of Designing Change is doing integrating a service learning project into the Upward Bound summer program led by the empowered leaders, and encouraging students in the Upward Bound program to use digital storytelling to make meaning from that experience in their summer program. So that's really exciting. And then we have just some goals to really continue building on and defining this framework of culturally sustaining outreach and recruitment. I think we've barely just scratched the surface, but we've got some work we want to do, and we're really excited to continue defining it, pushing it, figuring out what it really means. And as well as figuring out what is this role of the empowered leader, and how do we connect their own mentorship of K-12 students and validating relationships with their growing engineering identity, and how does that continue to help them persist? And so these are some goals that we have for the program, and ways that we want to continue to make it more powerful and more and connect more to not only our current students, but more students in the surrounding community. And so that's the end of our slideshow. I'm going to jump back to this one really quick to get to questions, but in case any of my friends in the development office in the College of Engineering are on, you should know I am going to promote Giving Day. And so today is Giving Day. I'm like, I got a stage, I'm going to have to say it. Today is Giving Day. Giving small gifts, not just to the Forever Engaged endowment, or annual fund, although I really hope that you consider it, but giving small gifts to any of the amazing causes that are on the U of A Giving Day page really shows support from a community. It's one thing for a big donor to throw their weight around and to say, like, this is what my agenda is, this is what I want you to do. And it's another thing entirely for a community to come together and give $5, $10, $25 to support causes and to show just the number of people that really believe in these causes. So obviously I'm promoting Engaged because these are amazing students who we are so honored to work with and be part of their stories. But I want to just encourage everybody to think about where they're giving. But so I'm going to go back to the original topic, which is what are the questions that folks have? And Carla, do you want me to take my screen down?
Yeah, we can go ahead and take your screen down. And then if folks, yeah, if you have a question or want them to explain anything further, feel free to jump into the Q&A section or to use the chat. Ailyn, did you want to say something?
No, sorry, that was an accident. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's okay. We'll give it a second. I've got some questions just in case, but we'll give it a second.
Although I guess I will respond to, I saw Miles'
Mhm.
chat. I wasn't able to respond directly, so Carla communicated for me. So I'll send you an email, Miles, so we can discuss potential collaboration.
Yes, and I got that over to you. Perfect. So I would be curious if you all could maybe just share a little bit about like where Dr. Hennessey, I know you worked, on securing the funding for this, but just maybe share a little bit more about like where your passion for wanting to get funding for a project like this came from.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak first, and Ailyn probably has a different perspective too, so I want to hear from her as well. But I'll let her prepare her answer while I talk. Um, which I just want to point out, everybody, Ailyn, this is like her first webinar that she's done, and she did amazing, and it's like bucket list stuff. So I gotta like hype up my people, but that being said, I can probably answer on my toes a little bit faster. We've been doing this like work with engineering students for a long time. Or I've been working in the College of Engineering for 10 years. I started out in recruitment and then moved into this kind of retention, student development and engagement work. And so part of what I think is really important to me is that I think we do a really great job. I think we work with some really, really strong frameworks to engage students and build their belongingness and identity once they're here. And it just, especially talking to Sophia, that was the student who came from Tucson High, to learn about her journey and learn about how she really almost felt like it was a border she was crossing, from being in Tucson High versus being on the university campus. I think all of us couldn't help but feel like there are students that we don't even get to see, because they didn't just happen to make it into our space. And so to me, that's pretty important, to just kind of expand that reach, and it was really important. It's really important for me to like develop leaders among students. And so I really felt like, especially because it was a student's idea and concept and a passion for a student, I definitely wanted that to be a thing that we involved students in. And so that was, and frankly, we had to get funding because we pay these students to do it. Like, that's another really important piece of the puzzle for us, is that we're not really running any volunteer programs because we want to make our programs and the way that they benefit students accessible to those students who need to have a job and need to have some sort of income, or would be de-incentivized because they cannot split their time so fractionated between their time, between work and school and activities. And because this is skilled labor, and work is work. And so, Ailyn, do you have an answer to that question?
Yes. Also, thanks for understanding. I'm an internal processor and need some more time. Um, so yeah, well, I already, I guess, mentioned a little bit briefly about why this work is important to me, and something that has, beyond like personal connections as being underrepresented in STEM myself, um, seeing the students that our students who help with the events like before and after, like that comparison also is like a driving factor. Before, like our students go to or lead one of these events, they're usually feeling like I don't have anything to offer, or like I don't know what I'm going to say to these students, like I can't teach them anything. And then afterwards, they end up like feeling like they were able to contribute and use their skills and their knowledge to like guide younger students. So that's also like a driving factor to see that confidence and sense of engineering identity like develop in our students even after just one like event, or like even just 1 or 2 hours of an event.
Awesome. Thank you all. Pause again in case anybody wants to throw a question in the chat or in the Q&A.
Okay, group.
Another question would be, as y'all have about a year kind of, with this program, as you were talking about, but are there any changes or shifts that have just learned in the past even few months or year that you would, if somebody was wanting to create something similar or maybe write whether an internal grant or an external grant, any like tips or tricks that you might want to share with them?
Yeah. Um, so I kind of mentioned this, but especially for like a mini grant, something that's like a 1 year thing, you almost need to start before you know that you have the money. And so I think I want to say our timeline was we submitted in like May or maybe late April, and we found out first week of June, and then it was time to go in July. And so um that time really flies. And so just like um really just planning like you're gonna get it is can be heartbreaking when you don't get it, but is also like sets you up for a lot of success when you do get that win. And then I I think we weren't quite sure how to really break down how much do we train students on these critical frameworks versus how much do we train them on like just teaching practices. Teaching is, a whole profession, and we're having 18-year-olds do it. So like training them on teaching, and then also working with them on building their confidence and building their ability to design. Oh, I didn't even mention that, but we have them actually design their own outreach activities. So that's like a whole thing that they do. And so I would maybe redistribute that some. So we spend just dedicated more time to the like how to teach, practice teaching, and that kind of thing. And also dedicated time to like designing and rethinking um, the like the the way that they would communicate their science. So I think that would, what do you think, Ailyn?
I mean, I can't really add much in terms of the grants, but in terms of planning and organizing events, I've learned a lot about how students need our students, like the college students that plan and lead these events, need very, in a way, they need very detailed instructions, but also they need to have room to have some sort of freedom and push themselves outside of their comfort zone. So it's like finding that balance between giving them the boundaries of what they're doing, but also encouraging them to, um, I don't know how to say, like explore beyond that and just push themselves out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, such a good point. Thank you, Eileen. Just yeah, not, not giving them a really specific formula and then encouraging them to think past that formula is like an art form that Eileen has developed a lot of mastery in.
Awesome. So I have my final question for you, and folks heard it at the beginning. But so, given y'all's expertise and the work that you have been doing, obviously with this program, but also with the other work that you have continued to do in the College of Engineering surrounding very similar work, can you share with us, what next steps are needed to build institutional capacity around HSI serving this?
Yeah. Um, so Carla obviously gave me a lot of time to think about this. Um, I think especially this has been really something that has been on my heart and on my brain in the past month, that it's not sustainable to have an office of 4 or 5 people do this work. Um, and um, and I think there's, you know, I got a PhD so that I could learn how to do this research, but you don't have to do the research. You can like just read the research. I mean, we have varying levels of educational background in our office. And I think it's all, and Eileen can maybe speak to this, is all like learnable and accessible. And I think this is the kind of thing that, like, irrespective of what our position is on paper at an institution, we cannot just rely on like the engaged office or the STEM learning center or um the extension offices to really rethink and reimagine any activity at the institutional level, whether that's engagement of current students or recruitment of new students. Um, we all have to be thinking in these terms, and that's truly, like, you don't need it in your title to do this work. And it's really cool that this is I mean, we have our dream jobs, I think, in this office, and it's really cool and it's really good work. But I think our goal is to be a resource so other folks can think in these terms and frame their work in these terms. And that's truly when we'll have a cultural shift in the institution and see like really big measurable outcomes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Hennessey, for being here today, and Eileen, you as well. It's always exciting to hear about the work that's going on. University of Arizona is a large institution, and so we don't always know what's happening, even, for the folks who are joining us who might be from campus, and obviously from the folks joining us from across the different states and nationally. This is always exciting to kind of, what's going on at other institutions and how do we see that maybe being something you can bring to your own institution, or are you already doing something similar and maybe there are ways, to collaborate. So those are extremely exciting. I want to again thank everybody who came today. We know that you are busy folks, and so we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and to learn alongside us. Again, thank you to our wonderful presenters for being here and modeling with us. what authentic engagement with our community partners, with our community at our institutions can also look like. Lastly, our next webinar is scheduled for March 13th at 1 p.m. Arizona time. We will be hearing from a number of advisors from the University of Arizona, and we will be talking about serving this in advising, and really being able to understand the structures of advising at HSIs. So we hope to see you in March. This was recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube. So if you have folks that you think should watch this or hear from Noel and Ailyn, we welcome you sharing it next week when it is available. So again, thank you everyone for coming and have a great afternoon.